Welcome to season 2 of Learning and Unlearning. In this discussion or episode, we'll be, discussing the progress that feminism and recent social justice discourse has made in enforcing the rights of women in broader society, allowing us to divest traditional roles and from the gendered lens we usually view them through. But the problem is that this doesn't always reflect in the way women interact with their intimate partners and the way women navigate their relationships generally. So in this conversation, we're going to be having a no-holds-barred conversation with 3 women who are going to tell us their perspectives of what women expect from men. Welcome to Candice, Chirwa, Busi Mkhumbuzi-Pooe, and Cassandra Moodley. We're looking forward to an incredibly insightful discussion. We won't be part of the discussion.
Not at all.
We're just here to listen to perspectives. Not even in the building. We're just here to listen to perspectives that aren't our own and to take direction. But we're looking forward to a really, really, really interesting episode. Thank you.
Hi everyone. So I'm Busi Mkhumbuzi-Pooe. Added the Pooe quite recently onto my name, which has been interesting, and hopefully we can unpack that in this conversation. But I'm joined by 2 incredible women who will introduce themselves to you. Candice to my right and Cassandra to my left. I think before I even introduce this episode, let's maybe get to know each other as a way of introducing the folks to us. Cool. Candice, do you want to start?
Hey guys, I'm Candice, and I am a coffee addict. It's actually a problem. I was going through my bank statements and I was like, coffee. But it ultimately feeds to the lifestyle that I live. I'm the girl who does the most. So, out here, trying to educate people about their bodies, author, TEDx speaker. You can find out more. Just Google me, basically.
Okay.
But I think just on the nature of this conversation, I don't want to talk too much about me as a person, but just me in terms of how I want to be loved. You see, and
which is missing so much as well for women who feel like you're pouring so much into the world, into what you do. We don't prioritize just conversation that can ground us in how we want to be loved and how we want to relate to men.
100%. And I think one thing that I've had a really interesting chat with a lot of my black female friends is that as black women, we're sort of conditioned to sacrifice when it comes to relationships, and we then ask, what are our male peers meant to do? In particular, our black male peers, what are they meant to do? What are they conditioned to do? And it's always just the response is always just to be is it to be dominant, to be assertive, but in the most violent ways. And we're just that's trash. That needs to change, because if we're told to be, these loving, caring, and over-caring individuals in relationships, then why can't they be the same?
Just pause, right?
Because some fire right there already.
I'm sorry, I got a lot to say.
Button. I'm gonna go to Cass, so you can introduce yourself as well to us.
Hi, ladies. Hi, guys. I'm Cassandra for job interviews.
Job interviews.
And so basically, like Candice said, I don't want to focus too much on myself, but I'm the civic education gal. TEDx speaker with my girl Candice, author with my girl Candice.
Yes.
So we've gone way back, and it's so nice to meet you as well, Busi. Obviously, like I said earlier, her reputation precedes her. Girl comes in with a bar set so high, and we love it. We love it.
So cool. Yeah.
But just in context of this conversation, I'm really, really excited to have it, because I think that this is a journey that I'm still on, and it's something that I'm still discovering. I'm figuring out the ways that I want to be loved. I'm figuring out who I am as a woman and how that translates into my relationship. I mean, it's been about 5 years now. So from 22, I mean, I've changed
so
a
much
lot.
changes, yeah.
So my love has evolved. My way of thinking about love has evolved, and what I need from my partner has evolved. So I'm really just excited to unpack it and kind of just look forward and think, okay, who am I going to be at 30? Who am I going to be at 35, at 40? And what will I need then?
I think so. For me, that's such an interesting thing, because I mean, I've also been in a relationship for 4 years. So I started dating when I was also 22, close to 23.
Yeah.
And one thing about long-term relationships, in particular healthy relationships, is having those hard conversations.
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things we forget to realize is that, you know, as individuals, we're always changing, and the circumstances around us also impact us. So the way we want to be loved also ultimately changes, and you always have to have that mental check-in, be it 6 months, be it every year, and telling your partner, this is what I want from you.
Yeah.
And this is something that you can do for me. And it's tough.
It's tough.
It's
so I
really
think
hard.
an actual good way to leverage what you said to get into our conversation is to talk about our love languages and how those have evolved over the years. I mean, I'll start because mine is super interesting and I think relatable for a lot of women who might have transitioned from, you know, being in school, not having that much money and not being around people who have that much money to being a working woman and a professional who has, you know, resources now and really can think more broadly about who she is. I remember doing my love language test, I think at 19.
Okay. Do you believe in the concept, firstly?
I honestly love personality tests and profiles. Like I used to be an avid horoscopes, astrology person. And on top of that, I do a Myers-Briggs test. And so I'm that girl who's like, I'm like ENTP, but also Virgo, but also moon sign, Sag. So I'm like a huge fan of just understanding who we are and understanding other people as a way to relate to them. Although right now, like just being older, I do feel it limits us more than it helps us. In the sense that if you're constantly navigating life based on what someone's love language is or what their star sign is or what their, you know, it tends to limit what's possible in that relationship with that person. There's complexity, there's lived experience, which a personality profile doesn't account for. But when I did my test back then, right at the top was like words of affirmation and then acts of service and physical touch was like, and gifts were like way at the bottom. Flip it to maybe 2018, working woman in a relationship, in a marriage, in fact, from I think August 2018, and suddenly acts of service is at the top, and gifts and physical touch is at the bottom, and I had to kind of think about what that means about how I'm growing and how my needs are changing through that. I think when I was younger, being just this young woman at UCT, feeling the weight of the institution, affirmation was so important to me, being told, you know, you're worthy and it's okay to need this and that, you know, and then transitioning from that to being this entrepreneur and kind of experiencing, you know, a little bit of celebration here and there. And feeling that I don't want to necessarily be told here that, you know, you're brilliant. I know that. I want you to help me decompress at the end of a tough day.
100%.
And I want you to be thoughtful. I want you to buy me stuff. I want you to go out of your way and buy me stuff. Especially when you're married, you know, and you share bank accounts. There tends to be a kind of like automation to how things are done. Food for the house. And it's like, can you just go and get me
that Le Creuset,
you know,
that Louis Vuitton?
So it's super interesting. It's like, how do you feel? And the cool thing about my relationship is my partner has transitioned with me in the sense that he's been able to keep up with my needs and contextualize them based on where we are as a couple. I don't feel it's a privilege afforded to many women. I think there's a lack of self-consciousness that many men go through. Because because for Tommy to understand what he needed to do for me, he had to do his own love language test. And, you know, he was like, oh, this is weird. Why am I doing that? But he had to do that to take it seriously for me. And I just wonder, how have you ladies experienced that kind of evolution in your own personal life? And how have you experienced your partner as you've changed? Do you feel they've risen to the occasion? Without kind of like outing them too much, obviously, because don't break up with anyone on learning and unlearning.
Hey.
But I just, just a sincere reflection.
Yeah.
Like, Cass, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I love how you've contextualized, just quickly to reflect on everything you've said. I really love how you've contextualized your life experience to who you are as a person, to how that dictates your needs and sort of influences how you need to be loved. And I think that's such a great way for us to look at it, because sometimes I think we think of relationships as, you know, this separate egg that we need to kind of juggle alongside everything else. But everything's super interlinked, right?
Super important.
And I think not having the marriage aspect, but still having quite a strong relationship with my partner. We're in each other's space literally like 24/7. That's played a part in how like my love language has changed. So going from, you know, we did long distance for a year when he was away. He was overseas for a bit, and in that space, I think, you know, you take what you can. And so communication is super important in that space, and words of affirmation were really important there. Like I really needed to hear
I'm still in this.
that we're okay, we're good. I need to, you know, even just constant communication or daily communication was super important to me in that space. And I was a lot younger as well. And so I really needed to hear that. And you know how it is when you love when you're young. You're just like, you have all of me, like you have everything, you know? But I think as I've grown older, and it's not to say that he doesn't have all of me, but I've realized that there's some for me as well. You know, there's some self-love that I've got to pull back.
And some for
my family and for the things that fuel me. And so I still do
and that's
enjoy.
not a bad thing for him.
No, it's not at all. I think it's a great thing for
men
him.
don't always get that.
I actually think it's a great thing for him. I think we take the pressure off of needing one person to fulfill everything. And so while words of affirmation are still quite important to me, because I'm an encourager, I'm a motivator, I'm that girl in your DMs like, yes! So it is still important to me to have that. And contextually, there are issues to that as well. Traumas that I know I've had to work through, the adoption, the abandonment. So words of affirmation are still key. But I think it's like you said, I used to think it was shallow to want gifts. I used to think it was, you know, men must pay. No, I want to be adored. I want to be delighted. And yes, come through with that little thing sometimes, you know. It does make me feel love. It does make me feel
and there was
loved.
guilt with me as well. I won't lie. There was guilt with gifts. I also had it's shallow thing. And now realizing that like it is something I want to embrace because it is something I desire. There was a bit of guilt involved in that, a bit of, you know, am I reducing kind of this relationship to materialism? Like I was quite, you know, straightforward with Tammy, even about like our engagement ring. I was like, I want a specific kind of ring. I want a specific kind of jeweler. Like I want a specific kind of engagement party. I want a specific kind of wedding. And I think embracing the fact that you want certain things first starts with you being okay that you want those things.
And not downplaying, because I think a lot of the time with Black women we haven't normalized luxury and also normalized self-care for ourselves. So when we start demanding things in our relationship, it's like maybe I'm being too pushy. There's always that inner voice in your back of your mind like maybe you shouldn't have said that, maybe you should have, but you're just demanding the general things that any other person would in their relationship.
100%.
So I think that's also an inner voice that I've had to sort of start getting rid of, to say, you know, when I want certain things, I shouldn't be too hard on myself for asking those things because there's a reason why you want it. There's that need that you want it, and you just want to be spoiled. You just want to be, you know, loved out loud. And I
love
think
that.
it's just it's such an interesting thing. This conversation is it's coming at a very interesting point in my life at the moment, because I think for the past 4 years I've enjoyed being with the person that I'm with, right? So Emil is an amazing individual, very caring, very considerate. But I think there's a point now where we're sort of like, I wouldn't say diverging, but there's we're not meeting on the same page because we're going on two different life paths. And now it's just a matter of like how we're trying to sort of make sure that we're syncing, and how do we get to that point that we can agree that we're syncing. And it's tough because you care about this person, but then sometimes you feel like, are you for me? Are you with me? Are you not feeling me right now? It's kind of like treading very lightly, and you can't. It's tough. I have to be honest. I think talking about this, I don't want to like confuse people and be like, oh, it's airy and fairy and sunshine, and it can be tough, especially when you've spent very critical moments of your life. I mean, I started dating this person just after honors, getting into my master's, and that for me was a very pivotal moment in my life, and that shaped my career. And now for him having to sort of be seeing like, okay, this person's becoming a public figure, how can I be supportive in loving her, is something that we've just had to unpack. And I've tried to realize, like, whether it's a thing of like, does he really love me or does he not have the tools to? And that's what I'm trying to like. They're two different things. So my love language used to be circa, should I say, before BC, before COVID. It was acts of service and affirmation. But then through therapy, I've realized that I've spent a lot of time affirming myself, and I don't necessarily need that from my partner. What I do need is the gifts and the what's the other one? There's acts of service, gifts,
physical
touch, and then there's another one. Isn't it currency? Isn't it money?
Oh my God. Should it?
What is it actually?
It's physical touch, acts of service, words of affirmation, gifts, and time.
Quality time. Yeah. So for me, it's quality time and gifts. But I think in gifts, it's not like give me an iPhone 12 or
No.
It's like
the thoughtfulness,
the intentional behind. I was missing you. He has like he has something, or even just like messages, like long messages or thoughtful voice notes. I think what I've realized is that I want to be loved out loud. So I just want someone to just say, yo, guys, have you seen my girlfriend? I just think of like, that typical meme where Will Smith is presenting Jada Smith at the red carpet. And it's just like, that's what I want.
It's like so many people are proud of you and rooting for you. You want it to come from that most intimate relationship
100%.
first. I think my question, though, is why? If people are celebrating you, why do you feel that's illuminating a need to be celebrated in, that most fundamental relationship? Do you know what I mean?
Because the people who celebrate you only celebrate you based on the information you give them or the achievements that are being put out there. They don't know you intimately as your partner would.
Absolutely.
So they don't know your faults. They don't know your fears. They don't know that
how
sometimes
vulnerable you feel as you're recording a podcast or speaking on a platform.
100%. Right now, I'm quaking in my boots. You know. So I think being loved out loud intimately to be like, yo guys, this is the person that I'm with, and look at her, she's amazing. It gives me that form of
and
like,
I love her with or without.
Yes, it gives me that form of like,
there's safety. I don't know about you guys, but when I started working and we were just blowing up, and it was not planned. And I was specifically blowing up.
Yeah.
And it was like, I just felt unsafe. Like, I just didn't enjoy it. I really felt that, I felt like an imposter. I felt like, why do these people like me so much? And why do they care about the work that I do? And for me, needing affirmation from Tammy was more about just needing someone who just is there beyond the whole this phase that the public is going through, because I feel it's a phase. And they pick someone else to love in 4 years or whatever. And it's like COVID made that as clear as day for me, because when it went all the way down to basics and we couldn't see our moms, our dads, we couldn't travel, we couldn't make money.
Yeah.
All you had was that relationship and what it could speak to in your life. And I think I just want to like affirm you in wanting that. Because if it's not there, there's no safety even in kind of the highs that you're going through. And maybe just to piggyback off of this to kind of speak about how COVID-19 has specifically affected your relationship. How has it weakened and strengthened it? And just generally, what has it taught you about men? You know? Cass, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I hate to be this person, but I had like the best time with my person. So we were obviously quarantined together, and wow, what an eye opener. That is my person. That is who I'm spending the rest of my life with. So help me God.
It was like incubating marriage.
Do you know what? I'm like 24/7, and I enjoyed it. Like it's the actual fact that every single day, and I mean, I'm not trying to make it all airy-fairy and it was all great, but like a good 90% of the time, it was really, really good. We get along so well. And I think I'd actually missed that. Like I didn't realize just how much of a friendship is in our relationship. And we've always gotten along well and we joke and we laugh and stuff, but to actually be able to hang out deep, you know, like we hung out
all
deep
the
all the time. And it's not
and work
always,
next to each other, pull up the laptops.
go through each other's frustrations of work together, cooking together. Like literally, it was a lot. But I really enjoyed that phase just because it showed me the depth of our relationship, which I think in the busyness of everyday life you kind of miss. It allowed us to have really cool conversations.
So I think a very important question is, do you feel that you guys had a strong friendship going into the relationship, or do you feel that it was established during 2020?
I think we've always had a good friendship, but I think what I was missing in terms of my own awareness of it was just that it was that good. You know, it's easy to miss it amongst all the lovey-dovey stuff, and we'd never really spent that much concentrated time together. So it's one thing to like, you know, hang out on the weekends, you're post-work, you're relaxed. But it's another thing to like find that friendship, that spirit of friendship is there in the trenches. You know, within this context of a global pandemic and so much fear and isolation from everyone else. And it was really good to know that, you know, that friendship is that strong. I think I'd completely missed it over the last couple of years, or I wasn't aware.
I'll tell you why I ask, right? A lot of people kind of have this, and I'm sure people have asked you this question a lot of times because you're in a long-term relationship. Like, how do I find my soulmate? How do I know someone's my soulmate? Blah, blah. And I've kind of taken a shot here and there answering that question in ways that I think were unsatisfactory now that I look back at it in context of 2020. I think friendship is crucial. And in fact, I'm hoping that my son will look out for the girls he was mates with when looking out for his partner. Because I think when relationships are built on admiration and respect for someone, with or without the personal affection and the devotion and the intimacy, it's such a strong foundation that when things are good, they're really good, and when things are bad, you can leverage the respect you have for each other to buy time to kind of work through that conflict. 100%. And I think 2020 really kind of did that kind of stress test, a friendship stress test, to say, if you don't have a friendship, now is the time to establish it. And if you don't do it in time, then, you know, how do you relate to that?
I relate 100% to that. I mean, I was isolating or in quarantine with my family, and so was he. So we didn't have any time to spend with each other physically. And, you know, part of me was like, maybe I should have, like, you know, moved in with him, and since, you know, at lockdown would have been like, But I think more than anything, I'm grateful that we went through what we went through last year, because it did put a major stress test on us to see that, are we able to constantly communicate with each other every day and constantly choose us every day?
Yeah.
I mean, it was hard at some points because we had to actively be like, "Ooh, I think let's just take a break, but come back and see if whether we want to prioritize this and all that jazz." But it's been a very interesting test in knowing that we still choose each other and we still want to be with each other and we still want to do this life thing with each other. It's just, COVID was just very interesting because the first time we did see each other physically, it was like, so we can't hug each other. But, it was
Strange
just,
times,
it was
eh?
very strange. Like, it's like, you're my person. I know who you are, but I can't physically, touch you. And his love language is physical touch. So it was a very difficult time last year. But I'm grateful for that experience because at least now going forward, we're a bit more grateful of each other in each other's space. We can be more aware of like the things that we do for each other and just actively work towards being better partners for each other in this thing we call life, because we never know when the world's gonna end. So it was a very
Hopefully it doesn't
time.
end anytime soon.
No, hopefully not. No, hopefully not.
Just speaking of like what we want, I think at what point do you feel like we tend to be problematic as women in terms of how we show up and place pressure on the relationship? Perhaps seeking certain things that are maybe not fair or maybe not like within context, obviously knowing your partner. For instance, and I'll take a go at this one. I know that Tammy is a homebody. I know that Tammy, he has these big feet. Like, we're always laughing at him. Like, he just loves being in his slippers and just watching comedy and he's feminine in that way. He's not going to be like physically getting into things and like he's not that kind of gent. Do you know what I mean? Who's out there in the world like taking things on in that way. And there was a phase in my life where I think with like an external influence as well, I felt like I want like super hardcore masculinity, like show up and show up, and I can look at that now and I can be like, that was an unfair thing to ask for in context of genuinely who he is in his most unproblematic state and genuinely what I needed that I didn't necessarily, that wasn't a correct need.
Right.
We can have needs, right, that are not, So how do you feel we tend to be problematic and how do you feel that influences maybe the posture men take sometimes, the things that they take on? I remember Tammy being like, do you want me to get into a physical fight with someone? Like, is that something you want me to do? Like, I can bulk up for that if that's what you want. And it's like, that is such an unfair, in context, that's such an unfair thing to make someone think they have to be able to do, to perform within the relationship.
That is such a tricky
but
question.
also, if as a woman being socialized in a specific way, you're told like, this is what you should go for. And we need to work that out. Like, first and foremost, before we can even kind of like...
Sis, apply the pressure, hey?
Yeah, no, that question is so hard.
Hi, sis, you came
you're on our next.
Very important one, though,
accountability question.
Accountability question.
I mean, okay, I think, this is a tough one. But I think what I do a lot is I tend to put the onus on him to step up without me having to say, what can I do to help him step up?
Yeah, so he's telepathic, right?
Yeah. So he must read my mind. Okay. He must always know, like, hey, Candice is, and I think that's very unfair.
Yeah.
And I also do this really weird thing where, like, if I'm not impressed with how you're loving me, I just choose to, like, one word answer you. Just to be like, okay, cool. Have a good day. Right, bye. Like, I don't know. I'm very quick to just be like, hey, okay,
Going to
you're
bed
not,
at 5.
yeah, like you're not treating me the way, so I'm just gonna
withdraw.
Withdraw to protect my feelings and my vulnerability. And it's unfair because like he deserves that honesty, he deserves that openness, he deserves that, hey, like, okay, I'm not happy with how you're doing this, I'm not happy with this 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. But it's also one thing that I've been working through therapy, because I always tell my therapist, like, I always feel like when I'm giving people issues or like I'm telling them how you're treating me, I'm feeling like I'm a burden on them. So she's like, this is the year of boundaries. You have to establish the boundaries and you have to tell your other people that you deserve to be treated this way. You like this, you like this. And oftentimes you're always providing and giving and giving and giving. You're never like asking the same for people. And the way you want things to be received, you need to say, this is how I want things, certain things. So in response to not you receiving those things, then you therefore withdraw.
Yeah.
And that's not fair on your partner. So I think I think that's the one thing I can name on the top of my head.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like,
I think a lot of people can relate with that. Like, and there's like a feeling of insecurity. I think that's like underlining in like most people's lives, but particularly with women, I think it's a feeling of worthlessness of a relationship or an individual. That can really feel triggering if you have to kind of unpack what you need or what you want. That can make you feel like, why is he even with me at this point? Like, at this point, like
100%.
you know, this person is like 5'2" walking out type thing, and that can strain how you're communicating your needs. Like I'm worse. Like I will not talk.
Hey.
And Busi is a talker, guys.
I will not say anything. A thing. For days.
Wow.
I can not say anything for 3 days.
Sure.
So you'll still have the general conversation about like general things, but you won't talk about the actual issue.
And I hate talking about emotional issues in that way. But it is and that's why it's unpacking how we show up that can strain things further than they already are strained. Like it's a manipulative tactic, and I think we default to it a lot of the time because we haven't been empowered with the tools to be able to lead ourselves as individuals, but also to lead other people in the context of a relationship. So when you don't know how to lead without feeling like you're burdening people or it's you default to manipulative tactics. So I'm withholding words, I'm withholding hugs,
100%.
I'm withholding, you know what I mean? It's like it's very intuitive. And also we read people. Women are trained
Very well.
and we want that as well, I guess, at some point. But I think the question should be like, why should we, instead of wanting that, maybe we shouldn't even do it in the first place? Because there might be a lot that we're reading wrong in general. Like,
Okay.
read me in the same way that I'm reading you. Like, I can tell you need this, and I showed up for it.
Men
it's like,
have the reading capabilities.
men don't, because they haven't been trained
That's
to.
the issue.
But the question is like, was the training correct in the first place? Like, why are we reading people in the
agree
first
with
place
that.
and not asking them to say things and ask for things? How much less confusion would there be in the relationship if I stopped trying to read him and just let him communicate how he's feeling? You know what I mean?
I think with that whole question on how we're showing up, yo, guys, 22-year-old Cass was so toxic.
Yeah.
Simo, if you're listening to this, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. I think I felt under pressure because he was 26 at the time, you know, which is the age I am now. And like it's 4 years, but it's such a critical 4 years.
Really critical.
And he showed up so fully himself. So honest, flaws, warts and all, and I was not that person. I felt like I needed to put on a certain facade, be a certain type of Cass, and maybe facade is an incorrect term because I think there were elements of that that were me. But, I felt like I could only be this version of me, you know, this clean cut, everything put together version. And
to
inside,
be worthy of,
right?
You know?
I was a mess, you know. Like I think for me, it was really, really unfair. Was just coming with my own baggage, unprocessed, sort of, you know, not worked through with all my trauma, hiding that, and then letting that play out in the relationship. And now you
and
have
almost
a person
testing him, right?
who's
Yeah.
sitting there
Like, how are you going to respond?
how are you gonna
Yeah,
respond when
just
I'm like
trauma
this?
I've
testing
never
your
spoken to you
buttons.
about. Do you actually love me?
You know?
You.
And
That's a
like
game.
he had his own stuff, and he would cut. Like I remember very clearly going on a date, like one of our very first dates, and this person was not trying to impress me. He was like,
Yeah.
"Listen, this is my past. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
But that's me in the
Yeah.
past. This is who I am now, and I just need you to be aware of that. Like
Yeah.
if you get into a relationship with me, and I'm like, I could not do that.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do that
Yeah.
because I hadn't dealt with any of my own stuff myself.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm coming with these abandonment issues, and I'm coming with these, you know, complex adoption nuances, and I'm not speaking about them,
Yeah.
but I'm like, I want to see if you abandon me.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna test you.
That's what we do.
You know, and
right?
I want the
That's what we
self-fulfilling
do.
prophecy
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
confirm my own
Exactly.
narrative, but
Yeah.
it's
Exactly.
so
And it's not
hurtful.
just the woman thing,
Oh, man.
right? If you have an insecurity is reinforcing.
Right.
So it looks for instances where it can show you that
Yeah.
people do not like you.
Yeah.
The way you
Yes.
don't think they like you, they don't. And this and that. So I want to dig into
Yeah.
trauma
Okay.
and family relationships with men
Yeah.
and how those have set us up for failure
Okay.
in the most fundamental relationships that we're in, right? Hectic. I'm so tempted to start, but I think Cass, just the way you've been speaking about overcoming and
Yeah.
dealing with
Yeah.
issues, I think you should start. I think
Yeah.
set the bar high for us.
Therapy.
Yeah. Literally. Yeah.
Therapy.
Listen. I think so. The interesting thing is, my dad is not a speaker. You know, my dad's a speaker, right? He was a politician, so he's a speaker, but he's not a sharer. Maybe that's the way I can put it. And so, in the context of watching my parents' relationship, my mom is the one who will make digs at you, right? Because she knows something's up, but you're not sharing, and now she's offended, so she's gonna just like dig at it. Not and that was the context of their relationship. And I think with the added trauma that I had been through, I started to mirror that, right? So like I said, it was this issue of I have this negative self-belief,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to share because in my family we don't share.
Yeah.
And then I'm also going to take on my mom's habit of like nitpicking at things because I'm not sharing and you're not picking up why I'm not sharing.
Yeah.
And now I'm mad at you because I really want you to know why I'm broken inside. Right? Wow, what a mess. What a
Yeah.
conundrum. How we've made it. That man is a saint. Listen, I
Yeah.
don't put him through the most. But I really think more than anything, we say we're breaking generational curses
Yeah.
and this
Yeah.
and that.
So important.
And it can sound like such a,
What trauma do you
hashtag.
think he's brought into the relationship from his relationships with more especially with his dad?
Yeah.
I mean, his mom. I think moms are very important
Yeah,
in terms of
yeah.
shaping how we love. But specifically, how do you feel
I think
he's showing up?
I think with his dad, so he's a Zulu man. And he's been really blessed that his dad is a very soft-hearted man. And I think that has shaped a lot of our interactions.
Yeah.
So his default, when I'm presenting at my worst, is to soften. And I'm so grateful for that because I'm not used to that.
Wow.
My dad's default is to harden and attack at the nitpicking without sharing. And so we have a surface level confrontation.
Yeah.
But because I love his dad, he's really such a gem. And his default in that situation, it's not necessarily just to de-escalate, but it's to soften. And I really, for me, that was so contrary to what that broke the cycle, right?
Yeah.
That for me broke the cycle because I'm like, I'm pushing you and you're saying, no, I don't raise my
You're keeping it
voice.
flowing.
You're
Yeah.
saying in my house we don't do that. You're saying, talk to me, tell
Yeah.
me, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, that's not how the story's supposed
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
go. Like,
Yeah.
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 I think people
So,
forget that,
yeah.
right? Men show up with all this violence or with all the softness, and I don't think we analyze that enough in context of how we are showing up.
Yeah.
And how we're both socialized in these different spaces and then shop into that relationship with all this stuff.
Yeah.
And that a big part of changing how they engage us is also dealing with how we've been socialized and traumatized.
Yeah.
Do you want to go next?
Sure.
Candice?
Yeah.
I can feel the heat.
You know, I'm taking into what Cassie says, and I'm like, you know, it's interesting that like my parents are the same. They both like individuals who are very strong-willed, very stubborn, and I think when it comes to like any form of like confrontation, it can get, like you said, like we pick on the nitpicky and we pick on that escalates, right? And so for me, I never understood that as a form of interaction, especially if the issue is as simple as you didn't buy milk. You know, why are we turning it into something bigger?
Because we're not talking about.
You see,
That you also didn't buy my wedding ring.
you know, there's deeper things, and I found that tied into like just my sensitivity towards how people interact with me. So I'm very sensitive to when you raise your voice. I'm very sensitive to simple things like if you choose to use an object and you're banging it. I'm very sensitive to those type of things. And so when I am faced with a confrontation, I choose to lay out all the facts on the table, but from a very objective point of view. And I know it's very subjective of me to be like, you hurt me, you hurt my feelings, but I'm like, what you did at this point, at this time, on this day, really and I think we need to address it, you know? Like, I'm very objective. But then when it gets emotional, like, but you did this, then I'm like, let's take some time to process. Because I've seen what overly emotional conversations can do, and I don't want to be involved in that, and I also don't want to have a household where it's like that. And so I've also realized that sometimes even the nonchalant, cold chats can also be very, like, how can I say, deflective. So we can't always be like, you did this. I know I did this. There needs to be some form of like, you hurt my feelings. I acknowledge that I hurt your feelings and I take responsibility and I'm sorry. And I just need to find a healthy balance between the emotion, the objective and subjective. But when I do have some form of like conflict with Emil, I tend to hate the fact that he just is quick to say sorry. Like,
come on,
tell me, like, how you feeling? Tell me how you feeling. I really want to know. Like, he's just like, I'm sorry that I hurt you. Okay, and? Yeah, and?
Why did you hurt me?
Why?
How did you hurt
like,
me? What specifically hurt me?
Yeah, what led you to that point to make you hurt me?
Too simple-minded.
You know, like, I want you to tell me more, give me background context so that I fully understand so we can work further into it. So, yeah, I've realized that I'm with a partner who is very, very like he takes accountability for what he does, but I don't think he really takes the responsibility in putting in that work to say, I know what I did, but now how do I make sure I don't do it again? And that can scare me sometimes. Like,
how long are we going to deal with a specific thing?
Because there could be a build-up where one of these days I can be like, you didn't buy the milk, and then we have the same instance of like, but remember that time, and I don't want that.
No. I was raised almost like a boy, with 3 sisters, and my dad doesn't have any sons. And he almost made me feel like I'm his little boy type thing. Like he thought I was gonna be a boy. My mom had to wear a cap every day during her pregnancy to like switch whatever needs to be switched in case. And he really just wanted a boy. And I was a girl. He was very happy about that. But there was a lot of kind of, I felt a responsibility to be his little boy. So I took on a lot of like masculine traits. Like I'm a very cold processing person.
Okay.
Right? You're not going to get hot fire. Very rarely. I can give it to you, but normally what I'll do is, I think what men tend to do in conflict, which is to kind of like make the room feel cold.
Yeah.
You know? And I think I have that masculine kind of prideful thing of, I don't need your help. You know how men are just like, I'm okay, like, thug tears.
Yeah.
Keep your distance.
Yeah.
So I kind of took on a lot of those things because I felt a responsibility to kind of be my dad's boy and lock the gate. And someone is at the gate doing nonsense and I'm going to step out and I might do, so stepping into a relationship with Tammy then, I think I had this expectation that he is going to almost be even more masculine than that so that he can subdue those elements. And Tammy's not that guy. Tammy's not that guy. Tammy's not going to lock the gate and check and run and he's not that guy, and he's not gonna make the room feel cold, and he's not gonna hide that he's feeling emotional, and he's not gonna do thug tears things, and he's just not that guy. He's like I said, homebody guy. He's
sing one, cry while
the Bible.
He's
Jacob, not Esau.
That's good.
So I didn't like that, I think that's the thing. It's like I was just like, come on, just be the bigger dude. And Tammy's like, I'm not gonna do that. And then there's dealing with that. But for me, dealing with it stopped becoming a make him do things he doesn't want to do, and why are you like this? Who asked you to be like this, and do you have to be?
Sure.
And I think how my dad's really helped me is by placing an expectation on me, especially now that I'm married, to be a woman. And that I just realized, well, I'm the one who thinks I'm my dad's son.
Yeah.
Nobody else. Everyone is looking at me like, you're absolutely crazy. Be yourself. And I think that kind of reduced the pressure. As on Tammy's side, I feel his dad is that super masculine, super I ain't crying for nobody. Where's my food? And because I think Tammy's kind of refusal to be that way is a response to that, to I don't want to be that type thing. And I think life is very interesting. God genuinely gives you what you need when you're in the right relationship. But besides the trauma, right, that you can bring, that he can bring, that can make a relationship toxic.
Yeah.
I think there are red flags that shouldn't be tolerated, period. So there's affording you complexity and nuance because you have a story, and then there's this is wrong, and this,
Point blank period.
this, So what would you say are clear red flags? In case anyone's listening to us right now and deciding to extend, a white flag to a partner that isn't necessarily one who needs to be afforded more complexity and one who simply is a bad person.
Violence, abuse,
100%.
any forms, physical, emotional, mental. I'd also say gaslighting when it comes to emotional vulnerability.
Yeah.
So downplaying your feelings, or sort of
Saying, really?
So it's sort of
bad?
or sort of saying, well, you're not going through this by these other people are going through. No, I'm going through 10 times worse than you're going through, so it's not that bad. I think that for me are major red flags, because there's no form of dignity and respect, and you're not willing to be vulnerable and accept that I'm going through something and I need you to be supportive and be vulnerable with me. So those are my red flags.
100% agree. I fully agree. I also think any kind of, so I don't want to sound like a dictator, but I think self-control is such an important quality. And anyone who exhibits a lack of self-control in any way, shape, or form, for me, is just a bit of a red flag. That inability to check in with yourself and say, okay, I've gone down this road here, no further. If you for me, just someone who's not able to do that at any point in their lives for me, it's a red flag. Whether that's
substance abuse,
things like that. I feel.
Yeah.
Let's enjoy life, but with anything, it could be food, it could be, going out too much, it could be working too much. Anything that becomes, too much is too much.
I 100%
and so for
agree.
me, I really appreciate, anyone with an ability to control themselves, to reflect on behaviors that maybe, are
I
damaging.
absolutely agree. I absolutely agree, because I think the very important thing that we're doing here and that we're leading with is there's complexity to who we are and how we show up, and there's trauma that's underlying, and there's nuance that we need to afford each other, but there are clearly bad things.
Yeah.
Right? So definitely agree with the points you guys have made. I think what I would add to that, and this is like maybe debatable.
Yeah.
I think someone who has really problematic political views
Oh, yeah.
Oh, 100%.
is like a major red flag.
yeah.
Oh, no, yeah.
Because I think like someone who just makes it a point to just disagree with things that like make sense, like just a devil's advocate type character. Someone who's out here just being like, yeah, feminism is like this and that, and like, yeah, Donald Trump was great. Like, I think I'm not saying we should believe the same things. Dissent is great. I'm saying someone who deliberately doesn't try and understand political views that make sense.
I mean, I had this
that person
moment.
is,
I had this moment last year because Emil's not actively on social media, and he also doesn't really engage in like what happens within things. But last year, when George Floyd was killed, I think that resonated very deeply with me, because a lot of the conversations that we're having locally was just about like how we can be Black in schools, and you know, they try to mold our identities to be something that we're not. And I just took heart to that, because obviously I mentor high school students, and a lot of my high school students that are Black were like coming to me and saying, you know what, I know you're my mentor, but I just want to tell you that for the past 3-4 years, I felt like I haven't been able to express myself as a Black woman. And I was like, sure, it's so triggering that you're going through the same thing that I was going through when I was in that same school. So nothing has changed, you know, and that hit me hard. And so I remember just having this really hard conversation with Emil to say, I know you unplug from the world sometimes, but when things like Black Lives Matter happens, you need to realize that you are with a Black woman. And that although you can't protect me from everything that happens, there's certain things that you have to be very aware about to just make me feel safe.
Actually, on that, what's been your experience of interracial dating?
So Emil's my second white boyfriend. So I'm a humanitarian, and I think that also stems to my dating life. I've dated different types of people. And I think the most, like dating a white guy, dating a white South African guy is very interesting, because I have dated like, you know, different
white people from different
countries. But white South Africans are very interesting, because there's that complexity of white privilege that comes into play, and also having those conversations not only with your partner but with their families as well, that they have to be aware about, because they're like, hi, I'm dating a Black girl, and this is something you need to realize, that there's certain things that, you know, we have to be mindful of. Luckily with Emil, I mean, coming from the educational background that he comes from, and also from the family background that he comes from, where both of his parents were what do we call them? Resistors? Like resistance. They were obviously beneficiaries, but they resisted the apartheid system. It's very interesting just having those conversations and being able to be tolerated and respected in the family. I mean, compared to my previous relationship, where, you know, when I'd step into the house and then the mother would be like, hide all the valuables, the Black girlfriend's coming over. It's a very interesting, you know, a stark difference, but there's definitely very hard conversations I have to have with Emil to say, hey, like, you know, the Metro Cop officer's being very nice to you because of the color of your skin, and when I'm driving, it's completely different. You know, it's the world we live in. But I've had to tell him that you need to realize that the person that you're dating, although you might just see me as an individual, as this lovely, amazing person, I am still a Black woman, and I can't turn it off. Like, if the world is hating on the color of my skin, I know you can't fight the system, but at least try and make me feel safe. And it's interesting.
How do you see Black men in relation to white men? Just in relation to Black women, like just the level of respect and just how Black men treat Black women. Do you feel like the experience is different with white men, or do you think men are men and men are a problem?
Yeah, men are men and men are a problem. Because I've had my fair share of like black men who are angels and will bow at my feet and will want to. And I've also had my fair share of white men who are like, girl, I only just want you for the night, you know. I just disrespect you, and you know. So you get the balance. I can't say that my experience with white men has been better than my experience with black men. I think it's based on individuals. I mean, you know, I've had black men who've cheated on me 3 times, and I've had white men who have the emotional depth of a fork.
Right.
You know, so it's like it's it's actually hard to just say. I think in daughter and daughter, you know.
I found black men specifically disrespectful to black women. So Tammy and I have this like new walking and jogging culture.
Okay.
But one of the reasons why we do it together and I don't do it alone is because we've seen so many instances where black men are catcalling, groping.
100%.
And I've never seen them do the same to a white woman running past. In fact, there's like a deep sense of respect and fear. And it's almost like it's an automatic thing for black men to just disrespect black women. Like you could come out of like a massive Range Rover and like Christian Dior, and some guy bringing a box into his building is going to say, hey baby. And it's like, I don't know. And I think that's what made me really interested in specifically going into that question of, do you feel it's also that outward kind of disrespect with men of different races? But I mean, it seems like it's a problem just across the board.
No, I mean, I still experience that form of disrespect with white men in particular when we're in social settings and they come to you and they're like, yeah, so, you know, tell me about your hair. Like, it's I mean, it's not as explicit as like, oh, you're walking in and a guy's calling you, hey, my sister, slick, thick thighs,
but
whatever.
It is a general just dehumanization.
Exactly.
Okay, so I think like a natural way to move forward in this conversation is to talk about privilege and how, I mean, we can't like dispute the fact that like masculinity is privilege in society. How do you expect him to use that for your protection or your benefit? And not just like in society, in friendships and social spaces, but also like when it comes to authority figures like in-laws and that sort of thing. How, and I think, Candice, you can start because I think for you it's unpacking both male privilege and white privilege in that sense.
Sure, that's a very difficult conversation because I don't think, I mean, more than anything, I've had the conversation about this is white privilege and this is how you're using your white privilege in this moment and be aware of it. But I've never actually had that conversation about use your privilege for the benefit of me. I mean, get that land though. We can get that land, right?
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of a particular instance where I actually can't. I don't know. Because I think for me, I would maybe be offended by the fact that he's using this card as a way to be like, you know, this is my, you know, the fact that he'd be like, this is my wife, this is my, you know, I would feel like, actually, no, hold on. I am my own person. I am my own entity and I don't need you to like flex your privilege off of that. I just want you to be aware of the fact that in certain cases, you are more likely to get things because of the color of your skin, because of the fact that you know,
powerful.
Like, but I don't need you.
Slow it down so this point lands.
Yeah.
There's a difference between him acknowledging his privilege and being aware of it so he's a better partner.
Yes.
And him using it to your benefit sometimes, but in a way that dehumanizes you. I completely resonate with that. Like, Tommy is obviously a bigger guy than and I like, so, and for me it's like that's great and blah blah, but in our context, like, do you see how people respect you for it? Like when you speak, like people, we always debate. My family is full of debate. Like people think I'm loud, like, and then they meet my sister and my dad and it's wild. and there's the ruckus and the debating, and then I'm like, but guys, wait, hey, but guys, consider, but guys, and Tammy's like, whoa,
Yeah.
and it dies down, and I don't
You
like
want
it.
that.
Yeah, you're like, I wanted to.
And I'm like, I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So I've never heard someone articulate that.
Yeah.
That's why I want to slow it down, because I think that's such an important thing that we don't know how to articulate.
Use your privilege for the benefit of our relationship. So if you're like, you know, in the case of like Emil being white, I think there's going to be instances where he's going to be getting opportunities. Use that for the benefit of your relationship, so that I can
to be
go
like,
to.
oh, Candice is actually a far better speaker.
Yeah. So that I can go to Diamond Walk more, right?
Yeah.
Please and thank you.
You know, but don't use it as a way to like vilify me or dehumanize me or make me lesser than, because then that's not fair.
So it's continuing a cycle where society sees you less than.
Yeah.
And then because
Don't
he
bring it into our
asserts his
relationship.
privilege,
100%. I get what you're saying, but I do. Conversely, I think there are situations that demand a Zulu man's presence.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy to step back and be like, baby, this one's all you.
cool.
You know? You know, just general interactions with other men.
Yeah.
I expect him, and he does very well, step up and, you know, fully assumes that role.
Yeah.
I see it in the way he, you know, that Zulu man charm gets us. He's used that privilege for a lot of things. He's used it.
Yeah.
Guys, one time we were traveling, right? And we were on standby.
Yeah.
And the lady behind the ticket counter was a black woman. And he was like, baby, go stand over there. Like, let me just do my thing real quick. And he flirted his way or our way onto our flights.
You see, benefits.
And I was like, I could never do that. Another woman's not gonna, you know, police when we're stopped. Fully assumes that role. And he's like, sure, you know, in the way that I could never.
For the relationship.
And in that instance, I appreciate, I recognize that there's a privilege at play. And I appreciate the use of it in the right way.
I think how Tammy kind of does it in a way that's right is he signals like, okay, don't say anything. I'm gonna handle this. That's really nice. That's just indicating that, okay, I am switching modes from like
how we
interact in our dynamic to what this situation calls for.
100%,
so if a situation calls for, because what you're saying is absolutely true, like the whole woman over the counter, you're trying to get help, and sometimes you know I'll step back and Tammy is gonna go and be like, hey mamela, and it's gonna move. You know, I think also just indicating, I think what men could do in those instances, so we know you're not using it against us, but for us it's kind of being like, hey, I'm switching,
I've got this.
And it's a full switch, right? It's body language, it's accent.
It is definitely accent.
Full switch. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think with traveling, doing road trips.
Tammy will like even like push.
Got you. I think it's interesting because I mean, Emil's like half German, half Afrikaans. So like when we're traveling locally, and then there's like some Afrika, like we're going to an Afrikaans restaurant, and I'm like, well, this is interesting because people might think I'm just your helper or something, but I'm actually your girlfriend. And he speaks in his like eloquent Afrikaans, and then people now feel more hospitable towards me. I guess that can work in the benefit of the relationship. So
have you seen him do that, like switch like that when it comes to authority figures?
Has
it worked, or do you want it to be done better?
So, like I said, I feel when he does do it, it's because the circumstance calls for it. And it's sometimes very interesting to see just how deep like, that Zulu man presence is, right? And I'm always just like, whoo, thank goodness I'm not on the receiving end of this. And I've never been, and I'm grateful for that. I think he handles himself really well. And I commend him for it, honestly, truly. I have no complaints in that regard,
But also what you mentioned, just like that subtle point, I think the switch is scary in the sense that men can be men, you know, in like the most problematic way. And like a guy kind of being able to switch between these two for your protection is him almost acknowledging that there's a problem in society and there's something inherent in him that's able to navigate that, but that he doesn't want to live like that. And that's really important. in my instance, I mean, I'm married, so obviously there's like breadth and depth and wealth of context and background and this and that. I think in the beginning, I had to kind of nudge him to like protect in that way and like be a cover. But over time, it's really come through for me. I think in the beginning stages of a relationship when, you know, families are getting to know each other and all of that, I think it's natural for like a family receiving a bride to not necessarily be like excited about the prospect of like integrating a new person to the family that they don't know, and you cross ethnic lines. Like I'm Zulu, he's Tswana, but like culturally Sotho. I mean, they call Mazulu Matsulu, you know what I mean? Like, it's such a... So, like, integrating something. So I can understand how difficult it is. But, I mean, the way that I've seen it play out, like, spectacularly of late, and I think it highlighted by COVID and just also me agitating for it, because I think women also have to ask for what they want, is in just if we're having, like, business issues or personal issues and... I'm just, I know I'm resourceful enough that I can solve the problem, but him being like, I'm actually going to solve this problem for us. I'm going to take the bullets. I think if men stopped using their domineering things to subdue their partners and turned it constructively into... I mean, getting the checks for our family, I think that would be so great.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that's what I've seen from him in the last 18, 24 months, where he's taking that bravado masculinity thing and using it in business, in our line of work, to get, you know, things done for our family. Yeah. And not, you know, giving that to me.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have anything.
You don't have to be the punching bag. You don't have to be at the receiving end.
I just want to quickly jump onto that. And I think what you've said is so, so important that we might even miss it. And that is that this historical thing could be from the fact that men, specifically black men, have not had agency outside of their home. You know, I've constantly wondered, and I'm not making excuses, and I'm not trying to justify why we are in a society where women, particularly black women, are bearing the brunt of male anger. But I think, especially in apartheid, where you as a full man would go to work and be looked at as a boy. The only place where you were that man was at home. And all that anger and frustration,
crisis, right? Because then you go back to KZN and you're the king. You're the patriarch. But how are you navigating that internally? That is so true. And like, if you look at just men today, black men, they're the least employed in society. It's like things have flipped. Like, no one wants to hire a black male. But everyone wants to hire a black female. Right. Which is leading to a lot of like unemployment within their segment in society and a lot of underemployment and kind of stifling earning potential. Right. Let's talk about money, actually.
Yeah.
What are your expectations? Just be honest. What are your expectations when it comes to earning potential, your guy earning more than you or less than you, or seasons where he's not able to bring the checks? How do you see money, impacting your relationship?
I think I'm going to go last on this one.
Okay. It's seasons. It's seasons. It's definitely seasons, especially in the industries that we both work in. So Emil's in the artistic space, multimedia artist, visual artist, actor, voiceover actor, you know, and it's all dependent on the availability of gigs and work. Whereas with me, my work speaks to like humanitarian works, empowering people. So it's always a need, but it's also dependent on like the funding, the opportunity. And so, I mean, this is something that I've had to like really reflect on in terms of the life that I want for myself, right? Because I know a lot of the time people say when you do marry, you should marry for the love and the thing, but ultimately you should also marry for the life that you want,
100%.
right? In terms of the life that you want to give to your future children, to the household that you want to have, etc., etc. And it's been a very interesting journey looking at like the type of opportunities we get, because some seasons will be really good, and then some seasons it's like, now we need to chip into our savings, you know? And that makes me think that, do I have to, because looking at my career, I think my career is probably going to be at some point the full-time 9 to 5 when I get a little bit older. And looking at it, it's like maybe I will be the provider. And I think he's sort of getting used to that. Because, I mean, last night, I sent him a boyfriend allowance. I was like, you do you, boo-boo. You have fun.
Yes,
You have fun.
Some money.
Here's some money. Live your best life. Because I am a giver. And I've realized this also with the money test I did. I'm a giver. So I like to give and help people before I give to myself. And that's totally fine. And I think that's going to play out in my life eventually. But the life that I wanted for myself is that I wanted to just be a wealthy... I'm still going to be wealthy, but just like a wealthy housewife that depletes my husband's bank cards because I want to.
Yes.
You know, I wanted that life, but now I'm being real and saying I don't know if it can happen, but I do still want good for myself. And I think Emil and I have had those conversations about, I can help you when you're dry, and I can, it's a partnership essentially. We help each other when we can, but we also have those real tough conversations when finances aren't the greatest, and it's tough.
Yeah.
Luckily I'm with a man who doesn't take, how can I say, like, what's the word I'm looking for? He doesn't take injury to the fact that his girlfriend's earning more. But he does realize that if she's doing so much, let me at least offer. Let me try and do something. If she's taking us out, let me just maybe get her flowers, or let me just write her a letter expressing my gratitude.
That's beautiful.
And that's, I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I honestly, I am a materialistic person. But I've never I don't want to be a housewife, and I don't want to deplete anyone's bank account.
I want to. Gender inequality is real. You must eat men's money. Please, guys, the editor that's going to edit this, just emphasize my voice when I say eat men's money. There's no point why money should be coming out of our bank account.
I honestly, I do kind of subscribe to certain notions around my money is mine, yours is ours, blah blah. But I don't necessarily buy into it. Given context in society, I think a lot of women are settling for really toxic, abusive relationships because your credit card. And so I think it's very important to for money to add to the wealth of the relationship and 100%. To not be crucial in making your decision about who you're with in that way. But just I've always envisioned my life as a high-flying working executive living a life of significance and earning well. And that has always been my view of myself, regardless of a partner. And I'm just 100%. Grateful that that's a trajectory I'm on. And that I get to be in a relationship that's really fulfilling and really great, and that enhances that trajectory. How do we relate to each other based on who's got money and who hasn't? So when I met Tammy, he was making money at 21, which was cool, I guess. I remember, I always share about Simone to kids and stuff, and I'm like, so, we were pushing. The check came in, 60,000 rand, not much, blah, blah. And those kids are like, not much? It's at 21?
Yeah.
So,
it is. Yeah.
So there was that temptation to kind of slip into, my man is out here, signing these checks, blah, blah. But things kind of swapped a bit between us around 2018, 2019, when I kind of became more the person doing the public gigs and that sort of thing, and I was now billing, and I was billing.
Yes,
okay?
Yes, honey.
And now there was the question of how do we navigate this specific season of our relationship, where he basically introduced me to business and introduced me to just seeing checks, right? but now I'm like really bringing Zaga. And it's like, I don't think we had a problem internally, but I think people had a problem with with what was happening, like just family. And I think the problems were kind of being projected onto our relationship and maybe putting a bit of a strain. What I will say is, like, I think being with a guy that is very grounded and who's a visionary is extremely important, because how Tammy kind of dealt with that situation of like, you know, Busi's bringing cheese right now, I'm not, and I used to bring cheese, and is just grounding us as a couple in the fact that we're bringing money to the household, for the household, and that we need to leverage our talents and our skills as we see fit. Like, we need to exploit the moment. So right now, Busi's hot commodity. She just stepped off stage with Obama. Let's leverage that momentum, bring money into the family, send Maru to the best schools, move into the best apartments. And when opportunities come that we can leverage what I have in my arsenal, then we can do that.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we don't have the patience to see that through, because I can be like, yeah, but you know, you're just being, like, I don't really get what you're saying, because what I'm seeing right now is I'm getting paid. You know, we can be like super short-sighted in that way and forget everything else. Like, I'm just looking at right now, 2021, 3 years after 2018, when we're rebuilding kind of the business and that sort of thing. And it's almost like God is taking us back to 2016, 2017, because every single client that is now proposing a partnership with us is coming from Tammy, through Tammy, for Tammy. And what would have happened, you know, if between that kind of 2 years when people wanted me to host their things, and, you know, so I think there needs to be a long-term view
100%.
when it comes to money. As long as he steps up though and knows that like he has to step up, he has to boss up, and that even if he's not making money, that's not something to like be proud of, and like go girl, like go ahead and represent us. Like still fight for like your place in the relationship.
100%.
And obviously, like you said, Candice, like if I'm speaking and you're not, like drive me there, you know, be of service to the relationship.
100%.
As the relationship is making money for the family. That's how I see money, honestly.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I really love that. And it's such great insights for, especially as we're not married, you know, we haven't got that context of shared bank accounts and this and that. So this is really powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Like bank balance, like 500. You're like, wait, what happened? What did you do? Wait. It's very interesting. But how do you, like, just speaking of the insight, is it something that you feel will be readily implementable when you one day get married? Or do you feel like you guys have a style and a system going right now?
So this is like, I wanted to go last because I feel like there's been personally just a lot of growth in my own money journey. Again, so I started dating Seymour when I was 22, he was 26. And, you know, my dude was Archer, banker, R&B, F&B, F&B corporate. You know, came through with the Merc. I was like, at 22, I was like, oh, hello.
Okay.
And that had never been my thing. You know, I was dating varsity kids, you know, doing varsity things.
Buying
so it was
fries, large fries.
And it was like a treat. So I was never like, oh, I want to date somebody who's got all of that. Cue Seymour into the scene. I'm 22, and I think it did two things simultaneously. One, Seymour's always been really ambitious. So I remember him saying, and like, I hope you don't mind me adding you, boo, but he was sitting at F&B and he was like, I look at my bosses, I will surpass that in like the next 2-3 years. So what am I doing here? Mans was like, let me save up. Knew he wanted to go into fintech, booked a ticket to London, booked his conference ticket, networked the hell out of there, and then within like 6 months he was gone.
Wow.
Quit, like cashed out his pension, moved to the UK, did his thing. And that for me was like such a key lesson at a young age in ambition and like a growth mindset, and that like having a comfortable job and a salary is not what it looks to be, right? Because since then he's grown exponentially. Number two, what it did for me is that I like things. Now I like things. I didn't know I liked things, guys.
But now you're like...
How did you can't know you like things if you haven't seen things. I was like, I like things, shame. And I think that for me has been, now I'm a hustler.
Absolutely,
You
yeah.
know, I never thought about being a hustler. I was always like, I'm going to get my degree, then I'm going to go work, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I'm like, no, guys, like, surely not.
Devs, I want to just affirm you in that, because I feel like in as much as friendship with men is very important for building a sustainable relationship with them, because they learn how to respect you without kissing and touching you and that sort of thing. What's also extremely important is to be with someone that you want to learn from. Someone that you admire, someone that you want to be like. And I think that can also be a good signal to check for whether you're with someone that you could potentially marry. Because regardless of the financial seasons where I might be bringing more money than Tammy's bringing, or I might be shining and he might be taking a back seat and driving me to the gig, or whatever the case is, like, throughout that entire journey, I was almost being schooled in a very intimate way in, like you're saying, hustling. Like, this is someone who could have just taken his degree, grabbed his Alan Gray fellowship, gone to like a McKinsey or whatever, been out here driving his Golf 8Rs and all this stuff, and get like almost kind of introducing you to a lifestyle that is great, but is this all you can achieve for yourself? But I think him kind of taking risks that involve not having money all the time and me having to step up is also a great way to teach me about life. And I think just being with someone that can stretch you by being vulnerable enough that they want to be stretched in their own personal life is really great.
So well articulated.
Last question. And this one has to do with the cloves.
Let's talk about sex, baby.
I really want to find out how you, like, how do you feel power and power struggles in the relationship play out in sex? How do you think sex reflects where a relationship is? But also, how does sex limit us from seeing when a relationship is toxic? And how do we make sex a reflection of where we are as a couple? And should we?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll start maybe because I'm married. I have every right to speak on this issue.
Please tell
You're
us.
the only one not going to hell for your sexual activity, so by all means, please speak.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think firstly, you need to protect the sanctity of your sex life as a couple, I think. And it just needs to be between the two of you. It needs to be private. It needs to be safe and that sort of thing. Do I expect my partner to initiate sex? I think when a lot of things hadn't been worked out in our minds about like, okay, Tammy, let's find our balance. Forget men, female. Who are we as a unit and what do we want to achieve? I think when we got over that kind of stuff, only then was I more comfortable to be like, hey, I could get it today. But before then, I won't lie. I would never, I would rather die. I'd rather die salty. I would never say, hey, could you hug me? Or could we? But I think now, as our confidence is developing in who we are as a couple, and we're kind of leaving behind people's expectations of us and the traditional aspects of a relationship, it's becoming more natural and more satisfying. Because I think sex is something that is a natural need and instinct in a relationship. And it's the fact that men are the only people who ask for it speaks to the fact that as women, we're not honoring that there's a need for it. And that also means we're not enjoying it. That also means we could do without it. And I think that's a problem because that level of affection is the only differentiator between a really good friendship and a relationship. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like as I've grown into the confidence and the safety of being able to also be like, hey babe, we could get it. Like, I feel like it's also just making it a better experience for both of us as well.
Yeah.
That's cool. I really like that.
I
like
think also
that
withholding
perspective.
sex can be abusive.
Yeah,
abusive.
it can be. It's like that thing you mentioned earlier on. It's like manipulative. So the way you treat me. It's sort of like adding conditions to your love. So if you don't treat me this way, I'm gonna hold the the vajayjay from
The
you,
oven,
the cookie, the everything. And it's not fair. It's not fair. So I'm dating someone who's asexual, and it's such an interesting journey. Because firstly, it's kind of cute. It's like, I know if he had to see a woman or any person that walks in looking fire flames, he's not going to be turned on by that. But best believe I walk in with my onesie and he's like, okay. I love that. Like, it's kind of like that thing of like the attraction is secure. Like I'm only into you and you only. And I love that. Which makes it interesting in terms of like the intimacy, because I won't lie. Like I was also like you. Like I was also like, okay, so you'll tell me when you're ready to go and I'll just wait and I'll be ready. But now I think through even the journey of like being the minister of menstruation and having conversations with people about like sex and period sex and all these things, I'm like, there's days when I'm like, so you up? You ready?
Can't teach people empowerment if you're not practicing
exactly.
it.
And I just have become more open with these things about like when I want it, when I don't, how I want it.
Yeah.
Because there's days when I'm just not into the full thing. I'm just like, you know what, like, you do half the things now, But I really thoroughly I've enjoyed the empowerment of it, like just being more open and vocal about how I honestly enjoy the intimacy. And I think you can tell when, especially if you've had a fight or when things are a bit off, it does have an impact in that space.
Yeah.
Because I'm a very intimate person, so especially when it comes to that, like I love the whole look into my eyes. You know? And if you're not looking into my eyes, I'm like,
I think men don't like looking in women's eyes a lot of the time.
I
think that's a very problematic.
I enjoy it.
I honestly think there's a problematicness.
Yeah, there's this thing called tantric sex where before you actually delve into like the actual penetration and the foreplay, you sit on top and you breathe, you connect with the breath.
Okay.
And you look. Eye contact is very important and key. And I think because we're both like actors and we like this whole, we love that whole like sort of, I wouldn't say
but
initiation,
it's just so important
ritual.
as well because it humanizes the sex that's about to happen.
It's not just like pleasure.
A lot of dudes are just out here like turn and don't look at me, and I don't want to connect because I don't want to connect with you.
I don't always though want to be like, let me know.
No. Sometimes
in the middle of things, you just like
sometimes it's just like today. It's just like I've just had a hectic day. Let's go.
Yeah,
done.
But I do hear what you're saying.
But I genuinely
underlying that there must be like I'm in this, like I'm passionate about this moment. I'm not like doing a drive-by.
It's like for a schedule, like a chore.
Yeah.
Cass, how do you see?
I think I feel like this year has just been so pivotal because I'm now the age Simo was when we started dating. And for me, because I can see the change in who I am, it's just such an interesting time to reflect back. And I just think as I've gotten older and I've had more agency, that's come through in our sex life, and I've initiated more and I enjoy it more and I direct more. And that's been really, really fun. Like I think post 25 has just been for me the best year where I'm like super confident in myself. Like, and that's not, dictated by how my body looks, and that's not dictated by because that's the thing.
I love the way that you're using intentionally dictate.
It's a pre-25 thing, né?
Honestly, I think prior to that, it was like, okay, I need all of these things. I need to like make sure, lights off because everything needs to look perfect. And now I'm like, no.
You need to see only silhouettes.
No. This is not the
Before
TikTok
the silhouette challenge, guys.
No, please.
No, I think for me, it's just been a really interesting journey because as I'm more confident in myself, like I'm enjoying it more, and that makes it more enjoyable for him as well. Yeah. But also, guys, like... Like, Shape, I really have nothing to complain about. I'm blessed and I know it.
Tell them.
And she knows it.
I love that, guys. That's my daily affirmation every morning.
Yes.
I'm blessed and I know it.
I'm blessed and I know it.
Yeah.
So I'm like just super grateful to have a partner that meets me where I'm at.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just does all the things that are necessary.
And I think great stories can exist. One of the issues that we have as well, because of just how problematic most men are, and just generally how much men need to unlearn, is that when someone does speak the way you're speaking, Cass, there's someone watching who's like, she doesn't know though. She doesn't know what's actually happening behind the scenes. Where is he now? And it's like, I think we need to embrace the fact that men can be great partners for them to be great partners. We have to ask for it, require it.
Yeah.
Like right now, we are scoring men out of 5 when it's actually out of 10. And they're scoring 4, 5. And, you know, we're kind of nullifying the fact that anything better can come out of it. And so I think I want to affirm you in that as well, because I think women have this tendency to kind of, you know, be skeptical or suspicious of great relationships. And I think it's not that there aren't great men or unlearning men. It's that we're not asking them to do it often enough. And I hope that's what this episode was about as well. It was about women upping the standard in terms of what we want men to be talking about to come into our relationships and give us something more meaningful.
That was an incredible discussion. Thank you to Busi, Candice, and Cassandra for coming through and being so open and vulnerable with us, taking us into their experiences and their confidence, and sharing their experiences with you guys, I guess. Shout out to Tabo and Lou and Tato for the technical production. And hard workers, incredibly hard workers, unpaid hard work. but yeah, thank you so much to them. The podcast wouldn't exist without them. And yeah, just remember to give us a 5-star rating.
5-star only.
5-star only. If you don't watch it, we will block you from the future Learn and Learning seasons.
That's how it works. It's intention.
And yeah, you can find this wherever you get your podcasts, as well as our YouTube channel. Thank you.